Hey, you Stygian dogs, it's Cimmerian September, and if you saw my last video, you will know that I intend to spend my Cimmerian September investigating and exploring and enjoying the poetry of Robert E. Howard. Now, Howard's poetry is everywhere. If you've read his prose, you've read his poetry. If you've read his Conan stories, you've read his poetry. Odds are you are familiar with the poem Cimmeria. This is considered to be by many his most popular and famous poem. If you've picked up, many of these Robert E. Howard Foundation press releases, you will have read his poetry. If you've explored any of the classic paperback collections, you've been exposed to his poetry. So it is everywhere, but it's something different to explore it in a sort of concerted, organized effort. Now, I found some collections purported to be published under the public domain, collections of his poetry. These were great to kind of just give a survey to some of his different poems. None of them are that robust, and they're all lacking those extra details, critical analysis, dates, any other commentary. So you're kind of flying blind. As I was exploring some of these poems, I came across one that I just am totally enamored with right now, and it caused me to consider some of Howard's influences with regard to other things I had read. You can come across his poems in some of the small zines that have been published in issues of the Howard Collector that you can find online in PDF form. But I wanted to know a little bit more about his influences, what he was reading, especially with regard to this one poem. So a couple things first. This is where Will Oliver's biography on Robert E. Howard comes in really handy. He's got a fantastic section on poetry here. So it definitely goes over Howard's influences and, outlines his early published poetic works, things like that. So fantastic resource. As I was exploring from there, I came across Rob Ream's website, and Rob has, I think the article might be written by Rusty Burke, and Rusty Burke took some of the details from an essay I'm about to reference, but it is Howard's bookshelf. So it's a listing of those books that are known to have been in the possession or to have been read or referenced by Robert E. Howard. So I'll be sure to include a link in the video description to that website. Now, as part of Rusty Burke's writings, and he also references that some of the resources identified on that bookshelf were also established by Howard scholar Steve Eng. Now, Steve Eng wrote an essay called Barbarian Bard, the Poetry of Robert E. Howard. And this essay is in a critical anthology. It's considered a seminal critical anthology of Robert E. Howard's work. It's called The Dark Barbarian, The Writings of Robert E. Howard, a critical anthology, and it's from editor Don Heron. Steve Eng's essay is available on Google Books. The whole Dark Barbarian anthology is not. You can find that at varying prices online. I don't have access to it, but if you're interested in Howard's poetry, you absolutely have to read Steve Eng's essay in there. So that was a great resource for me, just to get me on the path to consider some different things. And this is where Frank Coffman's book comes in and starts to overlap on things. So I had read Steve Eng's essay in advance of picking this up. In Coffman's introduction, he does reference Eng's essay and speaks of it in terms of being visionary, in that Steve Eng's essay offers 8 tentative categories for Howard's poetry, and they are the heroic, war, wizardry and Satanism, horror, exoticism and nature, personal, historical, and dialect and doggerel. Yes, there's going to be a lot of overlap in his poems, but this was a structure that Eng provided for exploring Howard's poetry. So Coffman absolutely celebrates this. He celebrates these classifications, but then he goes on to offer his own 30 thematic and topical areas as a means to demonstrate a greater breadth and depth to Howard's poetry. So that's what he's doing in here. He also references in here a Savage Sword of Conan issue, and I hadn't read this before reading Coffman's introduction. And this is a November November 1980, issue number 58 of the Savage Sword of Conan, and it has what Coffman refers to as, I think, the earliest essay with some critical analysis on Howard's poetry, and it's written by Fred Blosser. So, Savage Sword of Conan, number 58 from November 1980, essay by Fred Blosser. The article is called REH, Barred from the Shadows, and as mentioned, it's an overview of the published collections of verse up to that time in 1980. So these are published in 1957, Always Comes Evening, 1970, Singers in the Shadow, 1972, Echoes from an Iron Harp, and 1976, Night Images. These are all available. You do have to buy them off of eBay or Abe Books in some used format. So they do differ in pricing. But again, they're not fulsome collections. So eventually we would see a fulsome collection. The Robert E. Howard Foundation Press published a single volume of collected poetry by Robert E. Howard. I would love to have my hands on that. It's like 700 plus poems. And of course, now they do have the collected poetry of Robert E. Howard, volumes 1, volume 2, and volume 3. I've got volume 2 on order. And of course, Frank Coffman's book did just a bang up job as a collection of selected poetry too. So back to Frank Coffman's book. Throughout Cimmerian September, I think what we're going to do is we're going to explore some of those different sections. I'm not going to go, a single video for each section. I will dance around. We'll dabble here and there. I'll offer, poems that seem meaningful to me for a variety of reasons. They're not necessarily the best. They might be the worst, but perhaps they'll appeal to me in some regard. It might just be that they dance off the tongue and I enjoy the meter. It might be the subject matter. It might just be something chosen randomly. So that's what we'll do for Cimmerian September, but we will start with his section 1. So from Frank Coffman's Robert E. Howard Selected Poems, section 1 is Adventures, Call and Wanderlust. Coffman writes of what Howard himself called the adventures Beck, or as Joseph Campbell might have phrased it in terms of the hero's journey, the call to adventure. So Howard saw the call not only as an element in a heroic tale, but also for himself as an individual seeking new experiences, a would-be traveler whose physical travels would never be as extensive as he hoped, but whose imagined journeys opened doors to new worlds. So the travel and action, that is the adventure that is contained in Howard's poems, it's very often represented by the sea. And indeed, Howard's first published poem was called The Sea. And this theme manifests in tales of Vikings, pirates, and others sailing off to new and exciting places. So with the call to adventure in mind, I will read 2 poems. I will read Adventure, I Have Followed Your Beck, and then The Call of the Sea. Adventure, I Have Followed Your Beck by Robert E. Howard. Adventure, I have followed your beck. Through all the ages I have sought no other lover. I have followed over land and sea, dim vale and mystic moon mountains. I have heard Pan's pipes amid moon-dappled woodlands, and have seen the satyrs frolicking with nymphs upon the fragrant swards, while the night breezes murmured among the leaves. I have watched your lateen feluccas a-leap upon turquoise seas of morn, and I have stood upon your snow-browed peaks and seen the lavender slopes of your brooding mountains stretching away to the amethyst skyline. I have heard the berg song of your arctic flows, and have watched your northern lights flaring in godlike grandeur from the pole. I have sailed your seas, and I have seen the boundless desert sands all purple in the sunset, spread to the brooding horizons. I have trod your nameless jungles, dared your turbid rivers, harked to the shadowy jungle, where it brooded, bestial chin on midnight hand, like a sullen giant of darkness. And I've seen your nameless mountains rise from the sea of tangled forest and stand like sightless somber gods against the twilight. Adventure, I desire no other lover. I have followed your ways about the world, and yet again. All the ages that have clanged to your stride have known my step. My feet are dusty with the musk of antiquity. My hands clutch the stars from their sockets. Adventure, you are wondrous with mystic beauty. Your tresses snare the stars, and you are dusky-breasted as Egyptian dawns. Your eyes are soft twin planets of mystic allure, speaking of all the wonders of all the eons. Your voice is as soft, as melodious as the harp of Arion, and there runs in haunting refrain 1,000 minor notes. The song of Circe is there, the whisper of the dawn winds. The Call of the Sea by Robert E. Howard. White spray is flashing o'er the gray sea. White waves are lashing, calling to me. Follow the sea waves, follow the sea. Tall masts are dipping, now the gulls fly, white smoothly slipping between sea and sky. See where the albatross hovers on high. White surf is beating on the gray shore, wave hordes fierce meeting savagely roar. Where the white surf fiends screech evermore, now the tide surges far out to sea. Wave with wave merges where ocean winds three. Hark to the wild wind, fierce, roaring, free. Swift scudding ocean breeze leap from the shore. Bear me to bounding sea where the waves roar over your wild ways to roam evermore. Those were just two selections from Frank Coffman's Selected Poems, Robert E. Howard. And that is from Section 1, Adventures, Call and Wanderlust. As I proceed, I probably won't go through them numerically. I'll jump around, dance about. We'll see what is on offer. I won't do one section in each video. I'll combine some. We're just going to explore and have fun, and I'll share with you whatever tickles my fancy. Thanks for watching, liking, consider subscribing, and until next time, take it easy, you Stygian dogs.